Hey guys, tonight we'll step into a world that feels lost, buried beneath layers of time, shadowed in mystery, and whispered about only in the stillest hours. We're going back, not just to read history, but to walk beside it, to feel the chill of stone corridors, the softness of woolen robes, the breath of candles flickering in the hush of ancient nights. Tonight, we're beginning a journey, not into fantasy, but into the gentle folds of forgotten truth, through mossy paths and quiet convent walls, through old forests and dusty manuscripts. We'll follow the thread of a life, one that could have been yours, if only the stars had set your birth just a little differently. If stories like this help you exhale a little more easily at the end of the day, or if they've become a soft part of how you wind down, you're warmly invited to subscribe, or to like the video if it feels right in this moment. There's no hurry, but if you're listening quietly in the stillness of night, let me know where you are in the world, or what time it is where you're resting. It's a gentle kind of comfort, knowing who's out there, sharing this calm, drifting through the past with me. Now, let sets ease back, let the day fall away, maybe dim the lights, find your rhythm in the quiet, and picture this. It's evening, not here, but 1,000 years ago. The wind carries the scent of burning peat and distant herbs. The air is cool, not cold, and full of damp wood and hearth smoke. Somewhere, a bell rings, low and slow, like it doesn't mind being late. You are not watching it happen. You are in it. You are born, not in a castle or a bustling town, but in a place quieter than both. A Benedictine priory, tucked against a forest edge in what might one day be called Northumbria, or maybe it's Flanders. Geography is soft and uncertain here. What matters is that you're arriving into a world already halfway into its prayers. It is the 12th century, a time when words are written by hand, and knowledge lives in the breath of monks and midwives. A time when silence isn't empty, but full of meaning, sacred. Your mother's hands are shaking. She's not young. She's not old. Just tired. The kind of tired that's threaded through generations, passed down like wool cloaks and wooden spoons. Around her, 3 women move. One is the midwife, one is your aunt. One might be a nun, though no one calls her that tonight. Tonight they are all one thing: human, worried, focused. The rushes beneath you are new. That's lucky. They smell faintly of lavender, though it's fading under the stronger scent of iron and boiled cloth. No one is thinking of kings or battles or parchment laws. Here, in this tiny stone room with its heavy wooden beams and single smudged candle, there is only you and the weight of your first breath waiting to be drawn. The historian Eileen Power once wrote, "The past is not dead, it is living in us, and will be alive in the future, which we are now helping to make." That quote wouldn't exist for hundreds of years, but it feels true even here. Because you are not just a baby, you are part of the turning wheel. Another voice that might one day hum along to chants in the nave, or sweep the stone flags at dawn, or maybe never speak at all but feel everything. When you open your eyes, you cry, not just because it hurts, but because the world smells so different from where you were before. There are no warming lamps, no heart monitors, only hands, rough but warm, catching you in a linen cloth that has been blessed, perhaps with words from a psalter passed down from an older sister. The water waiting for you is cold. It's in a basin near the fire, not warm enough to soothe, not cold enough to numb. Your first wash is brisk, efficient, and silent. A few drops of oil, walnut, or pressed from something else grown here in the priory garden, are dabbed on your chest, not for healing, for protection. Against what? No one says aloud. The world you've entered believes in spirits, in saints, in the unseen, and for now, you are seen as both fragile and sacred. By candlelight, you are wrapped, not just in swaddling cloths, but in prayers. Words half-whispered in Latin by a voice roughened by age and beeswax smoke. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. You don't understand, but maybe in that brief stillness, your body feels the weight of intention, the shelter of ritual. By dawn, you will be baptized. They do not wait. Not because the church insists, though it does, but because death might arrive first. There is no time to waste when eternity is always near. You are carried in the arms of someone who might not be your mother. She is still bleeding, or sleeping, or praying, and you are brought into the small chapel, where light from narrow windows falls like water on the stones. The priest is not old, he is not young, he is simply a man in the habit of doing what is expected. He murmurs the rites with a care worn into habit. He touches your forehead, then your chest, with water that smells faintly of stone and iron. Holy water, yes, but water nonetheless. You do not wail. You shudder, and are christened. Your soul, they say, is safe now. The candles flicker. A window rattles in its lead frame. The wind has picked up. The rain might come soon. Back in the birthing room, someone brews a tea of comfrey and yarrow, not because they're sure it helps, but because their mothers and their mothers' mothers all said it did. The world runs on stories, on memory, on the layered sediment of lived belief. The chronicler Orderic Vitalis once wrote that history is the witness that testifies to the passing of time, but in this moment, time doesn't pass. It folds, it wraps around you, like the blanket you now sleep in, rough woven, darned, but warm. You grow slowly. In a world where childhood is not treasured, but tolerated, you are one of the lucky ones, not because your life is easy, but because you are loved in small, practical ways. A spoon of warmed milk before dawn, a song hummed while rushes are replaced, a thumb rubbed across your brow when you cry. The nuns do not smile often, but one of them, Sister Alditha, always touches your back as you pass. She smells of beeswax and dried thyme. Her voice is deep, and she prays louder than the others, but she has a softness in her hands that makes you trust her before you even have words for trust. You will not remember these days, but your body might. The cloister gardens are where you take your first steps, not on grass, but on hard-packed earth, between rows of lavender and rue. Your fingers brush mint and fennel and crushed calendula. These scents, sharp and green, will always make you feel strangely safe, even when you are grown. When you're 3, you wander near the scriptoria. You are not supposed to be there. But the door was open, and your feet took you where they wanted. The monks inside look up. One of them, Brother Cuthard, blinks, then gestures you in. He does not scold. He smiles, faintly, and shows you a page from the manuscript he's illuminating. The ink is not yet dry. It smells of iron gall and something bitter. The gold leaf shines like fire. You don't know the words, but you know the shape of beauty. He lets you sit, for a moment, before Sister Alditha comes in, and gathers you up with a look that says both scolding and relief. You don't cry, but you look back over her shoulder, and Brother Cuthred raises one brow in mock solemnity, as if to say, next time, there will be a next time. Because in this place, despite the cold, despite the hunger, despite the constant, looming presence of silence, you are beginning to belong. And in the belonging, you are beginning to dream. Not a real one, not yet, but enough to feel the weight of expectation, which in this place is always quiet, never spoken aloud. Sister Alditha hands you a small basket, rough woven with a bit of mending in the side, and tells you to walk the garden with her gently. You are to collect only what she points to. She says the names aloud, Angelica, Valerian, Bethany, and waits until you say them back. You sit 5 the first time you sip you're given a task. You think it sets a game, but she sets watching. You learn not just to see the plants, but to feel them. The way mint bruises under your thumb. How rosemary smells more like smoke when the sun is high. How yarrow clings to your skin when the wind is wet. These are small things, but they matter. In this place, there are no toys, no dolls or wooden horses. Your world is made of stone and straw, and syllables, and silence. You speak less, but you listen more. The books here are not for you. Not yet, but you see them often, on narrow desks, in careful hands, lit by slivers of sunlight and the warm glow of oil lamps. Some are thick with heavy clasps and chain bindings. Others are slender, unassuming, wrapped in worn calfskin. They are not read for pleasure. They are read for prayer, for purpose, for preservation. Once, you ask if you can touch one. Brother Cuthard considers this with great solemnity, as though you've asked to hold a flame. Then, he opens a page and lets your fingers hover just above the surface. Dawn set, breathe too hard. He murmurs, this page has outlived kings. You blink and nod. Your breath slows. That is, perhaps, the beginning of your education. Later that night, in your straw mattress, you think about that phrase, outlived kings. It settles into your bones the way some thoughts do. Quiet, deep, and slightly too big for your age. You don't know much about kings, but you know this. You want to live long enough for something you touch to be remembered. But it is not reading that comes first. By 7, you are helping in the refectory, lifting bowls with both hands, fetching buckets of water from the well. Though your arms ache from the weight, the pail creaks, the pulley groans, you learn not to let your hands slip near the rope's edge, where it burns. It is service. There are no good jobs here, no praise, but when your work is done carefully, completely, the nuns do not speak your name, and that, somehow, feels like a reward. To be allowed to exist quietly, to not need correction, to be folded into the rhythm of the day, like a prayer between vespers and compline. You do not yet know your letters, but you know the bells. They shape the day more than the sun. Spring arrives not with a shout, but with a breath. You feel it before you see it. The air changes. The earth softens. Birds begin to return, first in 2s, then in 3s, then in such multitudes that the trees seem to shiver with them. The sheep smell stronger, the mud smells sweeter, and the halls, cold all winter, begin to breathe again. It is during this spring that you meet him. He hands off the letters, drinks water from the stone basin near the gate, eats his meal, sitting against a wall. His fingers are ink-stained, his nails are cracked. He does not look like someone who carries words, but you can tell he lives in them. He arrives on a tired horse, with mud to his knees, and a pouch full of letters. His name is Alan. He says it only once. You remember it instantly. Not a knight, not a noble, a messenger, or something like it. When he leaves, you ask the steward where he came from. The answer is short. You watch him as he runs his thumb over the spine of a book on the hall table, just once, like he's saying goodbye to it. That night, you dream of vellum. Later, in the quiet of the chapel, you find Durham on a map. It's far, but not impossibly so. Durham. You nod, like it means something. The chaplain grows more tired. His hands tremble sometimes when he lifts the chalice. He lets you read aloud now, when his throat is sore. Your voice isn't strong, but it's steady. People begin to associate it with truth. You wonder what it smells like. You spend your 14th year writing more than speaking. The Lord's wife asks you to help her draft letters to her sister in York. She's exacting. Every phrase must be measured, weighed, and still sound like something you would say by a fire. Not in a court. It's an art. You learn it slowly. You don't notice. Not really. You just like the feel of syllables fitting together, the the way benediction lands differently than mercy, the way grace hums when whispered, the way some words feel like prayers, even when they aren't. He wears red. His gloves are too clean. He speaks Latin fluently but carelessly, like someone who learned it from tutors, not monks. One day, a rider arrives with no warning, sealed. He brings a letter. The steward frowns as he breaks the wax. The wax is dark green. Unusual. It smells faintly of herbs. Or maybe that's your imagination. Your name is mentioned. The message is short. And it changes everything. They need someone who can read, who can write quickly, who has no family to speak of, who asks few questions, not formally, not directly. You don't know how they know, but they do. But you see the line, and the one from the priory, the quiet one, the one with neat script and eyes that listen. You think she sits right. Sister Alditha once told you that most journeys begin before your feet move. You pack nothing. You are given a satchel, a purse with a few coins, and a letter of passage with the Lord's mark. That's all. The steward nods. That sep's enough. You leave at dawn. No one waves. The sun rises behind you. The road bends away into mist. You do not cry. Durham is larger than you thought. Louder. At the cathedral gate, you show the letter. The guard squints, then steps aside. The bells are different. The streets are narrow and echo with voices. You do not walk alone here. People push past. Horses clatter. A woman selling onions shouts like she's casting a spell. Children run. You hold your satchel close. Inside, the world changes again. Stone columns rise like trees. The air is cold, but not unpleasant. You hear footsteps, but they are swallowed quickly. The hush is deep and living. A man waits by the altar, not a monk. His robe is fine wool. His boots are clean. His hair is touched with silver, but his eyes are sharp. He doesn't speak at first. He watches you the way someone watches a lit candle, curious to see if it will gutter or burn. You nod. In Latin. You write? He asks. You hesitate. Yes. Greek? A little. Translate this. Aloud. He nods once, then hands you a scroll. He listens. Your voice echoes once, then settles. You do. You live now in a small room off the east transept. It smells of old stone, ink, and cedar. You sleep beneath a narrow window shaped like a cross. Every morning, the light finds it first, then says, "Welcome." You never learn his name. You only hear others refer to him as the canon. You copy texts, mostly for records, charters, land grants, deeds, but sometimes rarely something else. One day, the canon hands you a manuscript wrapped in oilcloth. This, he says, is not to be copied. Only read. You unfold it slowly. The binding is red leather, the corners reinforced with brass. The text, Greek, is fluid and dense. You read it slowly. You recognize the opening words, Metaphysica, Aristotle, and something inside you shifts. You ask later if there are more books like that. You don't understand all of it, but you feel the shape of it, the curve of the thinking. It's like stepping into a river that has always been flowing, just beyond your field of hearing. Spring arrives not with a shout, but with a breath. You feel it before you see it. The air changes. The earth softens. Birds begin to return, first in twos, then in threes, then in such multitudes that the trees seem to shiver with them. The sheep smell stronger, the mud smells sweeter, and the halls, cold all winter, begin to breathe again. It is during this spring that you meet him, not a knight, not a noble, a messenger. or something like it. He arrives on a tired horse, with mud to his knees, and a pouch full of letters. His name is Alan. He says it only once. You remember it instantly. He hands off the letters, drinks water from the stone basin near the gate, eats his meal, sitting against a wall. His fingers are ink-stained. His nails are cracked. He does not look like someone who carries words, but you can tell he lives in them. You watch him as he runs his thumb over the spine of a book on the hall table, just once, like he's saying goodbye to it. That night, you dream of Vellum. When he leaves, you ask the steward where he came from. The answer is short: Durham. You nod, like it means something. Later, in the quiet of the chapel, you find Durham on a map. It's far, but not impossibly so. You wonder what it smells like. You spend your 14th year writing more than speaking. The Lord's wife asks you to help her draft letters to her sister in York. She's exacting. Every phrase must be measured, weighed, and still sound like something you would say by a fire. Not in a court. It's an art. You learn it slowly. The chaplain grows more tired. His hands tremble sometimes when he lifts the chalice. He lets you read aloud now, when his throat is sore. Your voice isn't strong, but it's steady. People begin to associate it with truth. You don't notice. Not really. You just like the feel of syllables fitting together, the way benediction lands differently than mercy, the way grace hums when whispered, the way some words feel like prayers, even when they aren't. One day, a rider arrives with no warning. He wears red. His gloves are too clean. He speaks Latin fluently but carelessly, like someone who learned it from tutors, not monks. He brings a letter, sealed. The steward frowns as he breaks the wax. The wax is dark green. Unusual. It smells faintly of herbs. Or maybe that's your imagination. The message is short, and it changes everything. They need someone who can read, who can write quickly, who has no family to speak of, who asks few questions. Your name is mentioned, not formally, not directly, but you see the line, and the one from the priory, the quiet one, the one with neat script and eyes that listen. You don't know how they know, but they do. You pack nothing. You are given a satchel, a purse with a few coins, and a letter of passage with the Lord's mark. That's all. Sister Alditha once told you that most journeys begin before your feet move. You think she sits right. You leave at dawn. No one waves. The steward nods. That sep's enough. The sun rises behind you. The road bends away into mist. You do not cry. Durham is larger than you thought. Louder. The bells are different. The streets are narrow and echo with voices. You do not walk alone here. People push past. Horses clatter. A woman selling onions shouts like she's casting a spell. Children run. You hold your satchel close. At the cathedral gate, you show the letter. The guard squints, then steps aside. Inside, the world changes again. Stone columns rise like trees. The air is cold, but not unpleasant. You hear footsteps, but they are swallowed quickly. The hush is deep and living. A man waits by the altar, not a monk. His robe is fine wool. His boots are clean. His hair is touched with silver, but his eyes are sharp. He doesn't speak at first. He watches you the way someone watches a lit candle, curious to see if it will gutter or burn. You write? He asks. You nod. In Latin. Yes. Greek? You hesitate. A little. He nods once, then hands you a scroll. Translate this. Aloud. You do. Your voice echoes once, then settles. He listens, then says, "Welcome." You never learn his name. You only hear others refer to him as the canon. You live now in a small room off the east transept. It smells of old stone, ink, and cedar. You sleep beneath a narrow window shaped like a cross. Every morning, the light finds it first. You copy texts, mostly for records, charters, land grants, deeds, but sometimes rarely something else. One day, the canon hands you a manuscript wrapped in oilcloth. This, he says, is not to be copied. Only read. You unfold it slowly. The binding is red leather, the corners reinforced with brass. The text, Greek, is fluid and dense. Aristotle. You recognize the opening words, Metaphysica. You read it slowly, and something inside you shifts. You don't understand all of it, but you feel the shape of it, the curve of the thinking. It's like stepping into a river that has always been flowing, just beyond your field of hearing. You ask later if there are more books like that. The canon smiles faintly. There are always more books, but not all are safe. You don't know if he means dangerous or simply misunderstood. You ask to read more anyway, and he lets you. Not often, but sometimes. Enough. You begin to understand how knowledge moves, not just through time, but through people. From Greek to Arabic to Latin, from scholar to scribe to student, each one adding a mark, a breath, a hesitation. History isn't written in straight lines. It's echoed. You are becoming part of that echo. Time passes in pages. You mark it not in seasons, but in scripts. In the curve of an uncial A, the long spine of a Carolingian F, the delicate ligatures that bridge words like whispered secrets. You dream now in ink. You taste iron gall in your sleep. No one tells you what you are becoming. They don't need to. You wake before the bell. You walk the cloisters when they're still thick with mist. You listen as the choir rehearses lauds, their voices lifting like smoke into the vaulted dark. The sound does not wake you. It completes you. The canon calls you less often now, not out of neglect, out of trust. But later that week, he gives you a page to copy. No explanation, no context. Once a letter from Paris arrives, the canon reads it alone, then burns it. He doesn't explain. You don't ask. There is always a stack of work left near your door, sometimes charters, sometimes letters from Rome that need to be answered with care, sometimes old theological arguments in dense Latin that feel like digging through stone with your fingernails. Slanted, precise, fluid. The script is unlike anything you've seen. It is Arabic. The shapes are beautiful, strange, and oddly familiar, like music you've never heard, but feel you've always known. You copy it as instructed. He watches you as you write. His face does not move, but when you finish, he says one word. He leaves. You nod, careful. Time passes in pages. You mark it not in seasons, but in scripts. In the curve of an uncial A, the long spine of a Carolingian F, the delicate ligatures that bridge words like whispered secrets. You dream now in ink. You taste iron gall in your sleep. No one tells you what you are becoming. They don't need to. You wake before the bell. You walk the cloisters when they're still thick with mist. You listen as the choir rehearses lauds, their voices lifting like smoke into the vaulted dark. The sound does not wake you. It completes you. The canon calls you less often now, not out of neglect, out of trust. There is always a stack of work left near your door, sometimes charters, sometimes letters from Rome that need to be answered with care, sometimes old theological arguments in dense Latin that feel like digging through stone with your fingernails. Once a letter from Paris arrives, the canon reads it alone, then burns it. He doesn't explain. You don't ask. But later that week, he gives you a page to copy. No explanation, no context. The script is unlike anything you've seen. Slanted, precise, fluid. It is Arabic. You copy it as instructed. The shapes are beautiful, strange, and oddly familiar, like music you've never heard, but feel you've always known. He watches you as you write. His face does not move, but when you finish, he says one word, careful. You nod. He leaves. The page is gone the next day. You never see it again. That week, you read only psalms. You do not copy them. You do not chant them. You just read. Damen. Quid multiplicati sunt quae tribulant me, multi insurgam adversum me. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? You don't feel afraid, but you feel aware, as if something is watching, not you, but the shape of your choices. Durham grows louder as spring turns to summer. More pilgrims arrive. They shuffle in on aching feet, clutching relics, hoping for cures. You see them kneel on stone that's been worn by 100 years of knees. Some weep, some simply close their eyes and breathe like it's the first safe breath in weeks. You envy them a little. Their belief is so loud. Yours has gone quiet. Not lost, just still, like water beneath ice. You visit the shrine rarely. When you do, you kneel, but say nothing. Not because there sets nothing to say, but because what you feel doesn't fit into words anymore. You begin to notice things others done tet, like the boy who sweeps the nave, how he always touches the stone by the altar as he passes, like a charm, or the way the canon folds his hands differently when speaking to noblemen than when speaking to you. One day, a new monk arrives, young, barely 20. His name is Thomas. He has a nervous energy, like a bird that doesn't know where to land. He smiles too often, talks too fast. He watches you, not with suspicion, but with something else. Recognition, maybe. One evening, he asks if you believe in angels. You pause, then say, I believe in language. He laughs, not mockingly, but like someone who's been alone too long. That night, he brings you a scroll. No one knows he has it. It is in Latin, but it is not scripture. It is Ovid. Metamorphoses. You read the first line aloud. In nova fert animus, mutates dicer formas corpora. My mind leads me to speak of forms changed into new bodies. Thomas watches you. It's seps forbidden, he says. But beautiful. You nod. It is. You read together. By candlelight. Only a few lines each night. The ink is faded. The parchment smells of old cedar and something faintly animal. The stories are strange. Gods become trees. Women become birds. Desire becomes punishment. Power becomes myth. You do not always understand them, but you feel them. One night, you say, they said are not meant to teach. They said are meant to remember. Thomas looks at you and says, so are we. You say nothing more. But that night, you dream again of Brother Cuthred. In the dream, he says nothing. He just places a book in your hands, and when you open it, it sits blank, but warm. The next morning, Thomas is gone. You are told he was reassigned. No explanation. No goodbye. In his cell, there is nothing, not even a scrap of parchment. But in your own chamber, behind the lintel of your desk, you find one thing tucked beneath your stack of blank vellum. A single word, written in Greek. Falls, light. You trace it with your finger. You don't smile, but your breath comes easier. That night, you light a candle earlier than usual, and for the first time in days, you begin to write, not because you must, but because you can. The seasons turn again. The bells still ring. The pages still turn. but something in you is different now. Not broken, just less still. You copy the same texts, you wake to the same hymns, you nod to the same faces, but your hands linger longer over certain words. Words that hum in your palm as you write them. Lux, sapientia, origo, light, wisdom, origin. They echo somewhere deeper than thought. No one speaks of Thomas, but once, a monk walking past the scriptorium says, "Quiet is safest." You nod, but inside, a reply forms, and silence is not always peace. You do not say it aloud, but it sits with you. That winter, snow falls earlier than expected. Heavy, slow, beautiful. You watch it drift past the high windows of the nave, each flake catching light like a blessing. The world goes quiet in the way only snow can make it, not absence, but presence. And in that hush, you hear again the line from Ovid, now in your own voice. Forms changed into new bodies. You wonder if you are changing too. That night, the canon calls for you. You walk the cloister slowly, your breath ghosting in the air. The corridors feel older than usual. The torches lower. Everything around you is dim, but not dark. The canon sits by a fire, a goblet of wine untouched beside him. His robe is heavy with embroidery, less humble than usual. He gestures for you to sit. You do. He doesn't speak right away, just watches the flames shift. Then tell me what you know. You don't ask what he means. Instead, you say, "I know that not all knowledge is useful, but all of it is meaningful." He nods, slowly. "Thomas was careless," he says. You say nothing. He studies your face. "You are not careless," he says, "but you are not obedient either." You want to protest, but you don't set. Instead you ask, "Is obedience always right?" He smiles, tired, but not unkind. Sometimes not. The trouble is knowing when it becomes cowardice. You don't expect that answer. He stands, walks to a high shelf, pulls down a small wooden box, opens it. Inside, a thin volume, wrapped in oilcloth. He unwraps it slowly, hands it to you. The cover is cracked, but the binding is solid. You open it. Greek again, but older. Aristotle, Peri Hermeneus, on interpretation. You have only heard of it, never seen it. You still read it. The canon says, quietly, carefully, and only here. You nod, and then, without turning, he adds, "I am not your enemy," and you believe him. That winter is your quietest yet. You read only at night. Always in the canon study, always by the same candle. The text is difficult, slippery, words that twist back on themselves. Every affirmation has its opposite, and of two such propositions, one must be true, the other false. It feels less like reading, more like walking blindfolded through fog, but sometimes clarity breaks through, and it is breathtaking. You begin to think, not just about what words mean, but how they become meaning, how the shape of thought changes when placed in different tongues. Once you wake in the night, the word essentia burning behind your eyes. Essence, what something is before it is anything else. You whisper it into the dark. No one answers, but you feel the words settle around you like a second skin. The weeks pass. No one questions your new routine. No one comments when you linger longer in the library, when your eyes grow more tired, your fingers more stained, when your candle burns later than it should. You are careful, but not hidden. One morning, a man arrives. He wears black robes with red trim. His eyes are cold, but bright, like coins just pulled from water. He speaks to the canon in clipped tones. You do not hear his name. But later you hear the word whispered in the hall. Inquisitor. You freeze, not from guilt, but from understanding. You know now what Thomas must have felt before he left. That sense that something is watching. Not you exactly, but your questions. The canon does not call for you that week. No more books appear. No new texts. No smiles. Only silence. And silence, this time, feels sharp. You go about your duties. Copy charters. Mend bindings. Keep your head down. The Inquisitor speaks to others, not to you, but you feel his gaze, always somewhere just outside your line of sight. One day, you pass him in the cloister. He says nothing, but he drops a folded paper. You stop, pick it up, hand it back. He holds your eyes a moment longer than necessary, then says, "Be sure of what you know," and walks on. That night, the canon gives you a new assignment, a simple copy, a passage from Augustine, but in the margin, in his own hand, he has written a single line: "Truth is not a weapon, but it is not harmless." You copy the passage, but your hands shake. You wonder how many kinds of danger there are, and which one you are becoming. You sleep more lightly now. Even the smallest creak in the wooden beams above your cell wakes you. You lie still, eyes open, listening to the stone breathe, listening for something else. But the sound never comes. No knock, no voice, no accusation, just quiet. You begin to understand the shape of fear, not as a thunderclap, but as dust settling over everything, changing nothing at first, but clinging, thickening. Still, the work continues. You rise with the bell. You write. You copy. You nod. You wait. The canon is unchanged, at least. That sips what he lets you see. But there's a heaviness in his shoulders now, a slowness to his movements, as though he's calculating each gesture before he makes it, not out of age, out of necessity. One morning, you find a message under your inkstone, a single line, no name, no seal. "Meet me where the light bends." You know what it means. There's a small apse near the eastern transept, almost forgotten now. It catches the first light of morning, and at just the right angle, the stained glass scatters colors like breath on water. You go before dawn, wait, and he arrives. Not the canon, not the Inquisitor, a boy, no more than 16. But his gaze is too still to be young. He doesn't speak at first, just hands you a folded page. Inside, a copied passage, not scripture, not a charter. It's from the Corpus Hermeticum. You blink. The name flares in your memory, like lightning behind closed eyes. Hermes Trismegistus. Writings older than the oldest church wall, words that whisper not just of God, but of mind and matter and transformation. Words people are not supposed to have. You look up. He says, "I was told you set understand." You do. You nod. "Who are you?" you ask. He hesitates. Then no one. Not yet. He leaves before the sun reaches the glass. You hide the page. Not in your cell, not in your satchel. You sew it into the lining of your robe. Just once. Carefully, with plain thread. It crackles faintly when you move. You tell yourself it's the sound of courage. The Inquisitor leaves a week later. No fanfare, no message, but you feel it in the air, like smoke has lifted. The canon looks older the next morning, but also freer. "You're not safe here forever," he says to you that day. You already know. That night, he gives you a small bundle, 2 books, 1 sealed letter, 1 silver coin, and a map. "You so go to York," he says. "You so find a man named Belinus. Tell him the canon still remembers." You don't ask questions. You don't too need to. The next morning, you leave before the first bell. No one sees you go. You walk through the city like a shadow. The sky still dark, the streets damp from rain. When you pass the gate, you look back once. The cathedral rises against the dawn, its towers gold with light. You bow your head, not out of worship, out of memory. The road to York is long, but not lonely. You pass wagons, pilgrims, merchants, a woman singing to herself with a voice like wind and barley, a boy chasing geese, a group of children dragging a stick through the dust, carving spirals. You say little, but you listen. The world outside the cathedral is louder than you remember, not angry, just alive. It smells of sweat and bread and horses. You sleep in barns, in taverns, under trees. Once, in a ruined Roman villa, where the walls still whisper Latin if you press your ear close enough. It takes 8 days. On the 9th you arrive. York is different. Not as tall, but busier. Its heart beats in trade, not prayer. The bells here are sharper, the streets narrower, the voices brighter. You find Belenus in a workshop behind the church of Saint Denis. He is carving letters into stone when you enter. His hands are stained with dust. His beard is short. His eyes are clear. When you give him the letter, he reads it once, then tears it. Sleep upstairs, he says. We sell talk at supper. That night, you eat by candlelight. Barley stew, hard bread, cheese that smells of age. He speaks only after the second bowl. There sits a house outside the city, old Roman thing, mostly intact. We gather there, not many. Enough. Gather, you ask, to remember what others are trying to forget. He sips his ale. We copy what esp's not meant to be copied. Translate what esp's not meant to be read. Read what esp's been buried. You say, why? He shrugs. Because it's true, or because it's beautiful. Either is enough. You sleep soundly that night, and dream of a library with no walls. You don't deliberate enter the house until dusk. It sits half hidden beyond a broken wall of Roman stone. Its windows shuttered, its gate unmarked, ivy claws at the corners. A vine twists through what used to be a doorway frame, like a memory trying to reclaim a place it once belonged. You knock only once. The door opens before your hand falls away. Inside it smells of dust, ink, old wood. A man with gray in his beard and ink on his hands nods once. You said her late, he says. You are not, but you nod anyway. He leads you through a narrow corridor to a larger room. Tall, open-beamed, candlelit, tables, scrolls, a fire. 4 others are seated, heads bent low over parchment. No one looks up, not yet. The man gestures to an empty seat. You sit, and the work begins. They do not explain. You are expected to understand, and you do. You are handed a sheaf of thin parchment, loose, fragile, watermarked from age. The ink is faded, but the script is clear. It is Galen, medicine, physiology, written first in Greek, then Arabic, then Latin. This version bears traces of all 3. You read it carefully, mouth closed, heart open. The soul resides in the warmth of the blood. Beside you, someone coughs. Another scribbles quickly, furiously, as though racing some internal storm. You glance across the room. A woman older, with thin fingers stained dark from soot, dips her quill in black ink and corrects a line before her candle flickers and goes out. She doesn't flinch, just keeps writing. That night, Belenus hands you a cup of warm wine and says, "This place is not safe, but it is necessary." You nod. He asks, "Are you afraid?" You think of Durham, of Thomas, of the cannon's hand, shaking slightly, as he passed you the map. And then, softly, yes, Belinus nods. Then Yusutul do well. You live there through the winter. The world outside grows harsher. Roads freeze, bread becomes scarcer, wood harder to come by, but in the house, the fire always burns, and the words never stop. You copy more than texts. You copy memory. There are writings here older than the church. Diagrams of stars, accounts of eclipses, theories of motion that speak of a world spinning before anyone dared say it aloud. And beside those, words of faith, deep, questioning, beautiful. Mystics and monks, Persian astronomers, Jewish poets, Christian scholars who believed doubt was the soul's way of breathing. You don't speak much during the day, but you begin to write in the dark, your own words now, not for copying, not for anyone, just for yourself. If the stars are God's handwriting, then doubt is the margin note. One night, a woman named Isel gives you a scroll, no introduction, no explanation. It's a letter, written centuries ago, from one scholar to another. The first line is simple. To ask is not to betray. To remain silent is. You fold the scroll carefully. Keep it near you when you sleep. You dream that night of a vast library with doors made of water. You walk through them, and every book you touch becomes light. In early spring, someone does not return. Her name is Cecily, a quiet woman, broad shoulders, an expert with translations between Latin and Arabic. She left 2 weeks ago for Norwich to deliver a package. She was due back 3 days ago. No word, no message, no sign. Belinus says nothing, but the way he watches the door when the wind moves, it tells you everything. That week, the work changes. Pages are burned after copying. Meetings are held only at night. A younger scribe is sent away without explanation. You do not ask, but you begin keeping your robe and satchel close, even while sleeping. One night, you return to your chamber and find a folded note on your bed. No signature, just one line. They are coming again. This time for the words. You leave it burning in the candle flame and sleep without dreaming. On the 6th day of waiting, someone knocks at the outer door after midnight. No one ever knocks. You are the first to rise. You reach the corridor just in time to see Uzzle moving toward the door, her hand low, steady. The door opens, and Cecily walks in. She is limping. She does not speak. She removes her cloak slowly, wincing. Beneath it, bruises. Her hair is cut unevenly. Her eyes are too still. She says only one thing before sitting at the fire. Don Tet go to Norwich. Belinus nods. We one tip. The others sit in silence. You bring her water. She touches your wrist as you offer it. Her fingers feather light. Don Stet, forget what you sev read, she says. You promise. 3 days later, Belinus gathers everyone in the main room. There are 10 of you now. Quiet, watchful, every face lit orange by the fire. There are rumors, he says, of a purge. No one asks what kind, he continues. It's Stas, coming from Paris. He's spreading outward. They separate watching for false texts. Sibiya, unchristian thought. Sibiya, his voice does not rise. They Sepil call it heresy. But it sips fear. He looks at you. At dawn we scatter. No one argues. There is nothing to argue. That night, you pack your satchel again. The coin, the robe, the letters, and 1 page of your own writing, folded into the hem. You sleep for 2 hours, and when the sky begins to pale, you walk into the dawn. You don't head north. You walk west. The road is soft with spring thaw, and the air smells like water and wood smoke. You pass fields greening at the edges, hedges alive with bird song, a world that's beginning again, unaware of what's ending. No one follows, no one calls your name, and still, you look back. Not often, but sometimes, in case the wind brings something behind you. Eventually, the roads narrow, the people thin. You move from inns to barns to shepherds' cottages. You offer to mend pages, to fix accounts, to copy prayers. Your hands remain ink-stained, but you work with grain now too, and bread, and quiet. There is no more network, no more canon, no more questions. You are not ready to answer aloud, only the work. One evening, you find shelter in a disused chapel. The roof is whole, the floor is mossed. A bird has nested in the alcove where the Virgin once stood. You sweep the stone with your robe, light a candle, and stay. The next day you borrow a quill. You begin again, not transcribing, not copying, not preserving someone else's truth. You write your own, not in Latin, not in Greek, but in the language that feels most honest, your own. You write slowly, carefully. You write about light and silence, about the difference between forgetting and letting go, about how fear feels in the ribs, about the shape of a name unspoken, and the weight of a name remembered. You write in the margins too, notes, questions, corrections, jokes only you will laugh at. You draw a small diagram once, a circle within a square. You don't know why. It feels right. At night, you speak aloud, the old lines you still remember, the ones that mattered. In nova fert animus, my mind leads me to speak of forms changed. You pause, look around at the stone, the moss, the warm, empty air, and finish in your own words, and sometimes not into new bodies at all. Sometimes into silence, into pages, into breath. You close the book and let the candle burn low. You stay there through summer. No one disturbs you. Once, a boy appears at the threshold, barefoot, dusty, watchful. He doesn't speak, just points at the parchment you show in the letter. He copies it, carefully. You say nothing, but the next day, he comes back, and so, slowly it begins again. Not a school, not a priory, not a rebellion, just a table, some parchment, a borrowed quill, and a name passed by word of mouth. There is someone who remembers. You don't call it resistance. You don't call it anything. But in the years to come, as the road grows quieter behind you and your hand grows slower with age, you look sometimes at the pages, not to read, just to remember. The questions, the breath, the quiet fire of knowing something true, even when it must be hidden. You don't need a monument. You don't need a title. You only need ink, and time, and stillness. And sometimes, on cool nights, when the stars hum louder than the wind, you whisper a name you haven't spoken in years. Thomas. And then, Canon. And then, yours. And you smile. Because the words did not vanish, they only found another form. You reach for your quill and write one more line. I was not a fire, but I carried the spark.